Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Kamigami Battles, and it's from Japanime Games. If you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. You can do so by following the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Now, right off the top, let me go ahead and point out that Kamigami Battles is actually a reinterpretation, a new version of the game Kanzume Goddess, which I have reviewed on my channel. It's also from Japanime Games. You can check that out elsewhere. Both games are deck building games. Kamigami Battles is basically taking the core elements from Kanzume Goddess and adding new stuff to it, changing around a couple of rules, changing some of the artwork, but in some cases not all of the artwork, and so on. The other important thing to note, and that is very different, is that right off the bat, through the Kickstarter, there are two different base sets of the game that can be elements of which can be mixed and matched with each other, or you can get one on its own and play it just by itself, similar to what they do, what Japanime Games does with the Tanto Cuore game series, where it's independent sets, but they can all be mixed and matched together in different ways, taking different elements from each. Now, what I'm going to show you in the overview for this preview is a prototype version of the River of Souls set, which is pretty much all brand new stuff to the game. The other set is the Battle of Nine Realms, which is more directly the stuff from Kanzume Goddess. So just keep that stuff in mind. Now, if you're not familiar with any of this, including Kanzume Goddess, it's a deck-building game where you're taking control of a mythological god, and again, depending on the set that you're playing with, it's actually going to be from a different pantheon. So, for instance, in River of Souls, you have the Egyptian pantheon, and I think it's Mesopotamian pantheon? I know, I should know that. But you're taking control of a god, and through typical deck building elements, with a few curveballs from typical deck building, actually, you're going to be trying to eliminate the other gods or accrue enough energy to win outright on your own. There's also a team mode as well. You're playing as these gods, you're recruiting these holy warriors to your side, using disciples to do so. It's a bit more complicated than that, but obviously I'm going to show you with this prototype version of the River of Souls set how the game plays. Then we're going to come back, we'll discuss it further. Kamigami Battles is a competitive game for 2 to 6 players if you play in a free-for-all mode, or 4 or 6 players if you play in team mode. Each player takes control of a mythological god, summoning servants to attack and weaken the other gods. In free-for-all mode, you must either eliminate all other gods or raise your god up to 25 energy. In team mode, you need to eliminate the opposing team's main god. I'll primarily explain the game's free-for-all mode, but the core rules are the same for both modes. Start the setup by randomly dealing 2 god cards to each player, who will each then choose one to put into play. God cards are aligned with certain pantheons and spheres of influence pictured above their abilities, which are relevant if you're playing with temples and team games. Every god will have either act or react abilities to use during the game, and starts with 15 energy. If you are playing with temples, each player in order should choose one, but must choose a temple that matches one of your spheres. Temples also have act and react abilities and start with 5 energy. Each player gets a deck of cards consisting of 8 magi and 2 temple guards. These starting cards are collectively known as disciple cards. Magi will give you the faith points necessary to recruit warriors. Temple guards will help you defend not just your temples, but your god as well, or potentially aid your attack on another player's temple. Shuffle these cards and draw 5 to make your starting hand. Lastly, create the Hall of Heroes. Remaining magi and temple guards are placed in a face-up stack next to a stack of enchantresses, which are like souped-up magi you're always able to recruit, and which are also considered disciples. The deck of warrior cards is shuffled, and cards are flipped up off the top until you have 6 random warriors ready to recruit in front of everyone. If more than one of the same hero is drawn, they stack on top of each other. Warrior cards have a wide variety of act and react abilities, and can either give you faith points, attack, defense, more cards, etc. The amount of faith points you need to recruit any card from the Hall of Heroes is in the top right corner. Warriors are also associated with a color, and have two other colors underneath that represent their color restraint, all in the top left corner. I'll explain more about all of this in a moment. Here I'll stop and make it clear that Kamigami Battles is a deck building game. The central premise is that every player will start with the same weak deck of cards, drawing 5 cards each turn and reshuffling their discard pile when their deck runs out and they need to draw more cards. But they will use those weak cards to recruit new and better cards that go straight on top of your deck, which is a bit different than other deck builders. That means you'll quickly draw those better cards and they will be in rotation for you to use from then on. Decide who goes first. Every player's turn goes through 5 phases. The starting phase usually passes without incident, but some abilities may need to be used then. But next is the play phase where most of the action happens. Any number of Disciple cards may be played from hand to use their Act ability, usually to accrue faith points to use later when recruiting. However, only one Act ability can be used per card, so if it has more than one, you must decide which one you use when you play the card. If a card has a React ability, you must keep it in hand and use it just for that when the time is right. Warriors are played differently. Starting off each turn, you may only play and use one warrior card and its Act ability. When you play a warrior, the 2 small color orbs underneath the card's primary color become your color restraint. You may play a second warrior card in the same turn, but only if its primary color matches one of the 2 color restraint colors of the previous card. The new card's color restraint now takes precedent, which means you may play a third card if it can match one of the new color restraints, and on, adding new cards to the chain. React abilities on warriors are never limited by color restraint and can always be played when applicable, just like other React cards. Attacking and defending is simple. When playing a card that allows you to attack, choose a target on an opponent, either a god or a temple. Your opponent has a chance to play a React ability that grants defense, or just cancels it altogether. If they do play a defense card, subtract that defense value from your attack value. If there is any attack value remaining after that, take off that much energy from the target. Next is the recruit phase, where you can actually spend the faith you've accrued to recruit warriors or disciples, placing them directly on top of your deck face down as you do so. You can recruit as many cards as you can afford in a turn. If you recruit a warrior that leaves a spot empty, it immediately refills from the deck, and you can even recruit that new card if you can afford it. Faith points you accrue do not carry over to the next round, so use them or lose them. In the second to last phase of the turn, you'll discard all cards you've played during the turn and any cards that you did not play and that are still in hand. No cards carry over to the next round. Finally, the last phase is redrawing 5 cards from your deck. Reshuffling the deck only if you need to draw more cards if you have not yet gotten 5. Players keep taking turns like this in free-for-all until either all but one player's god is eliminated, or one player gets to 25 energy and wins immediately. Team games basically have the same core rules, but players work together on even teams, either 2-on-2 or 3-on-3, and each team takes control of a specific pantheon of gods. In addition, the only goal in team games is to eliminate the designated main god on each. The other gods are just support with less energy that can be temporarily sealed away if they lose all their energy but come back. If the main god falls, however, that's it, the other team wins. That is Kamigami Battles. Well, so obviously I will reiterate here that this is not a review per se, and I am not going to retread what was just in Kanzume Goddess. Again, you can refer to my review of that from a while back if you want to see just what I think of those core elements. But as far as what has been brought to the table, so to speak, with Kamigami Battles, it's very interesting because it's Kanzume Goddess in my review, I liked the game, but there was things that obviously could have been added to the game. So what Japan Games has done here is added more elements to it. You have the idea of the temples now, which is another, in one cynical way you can look at it, is that is another target for you to hit on your opponents and for your opponents to hit on you. But it's another tool for you as well. It's more abilities for you to use in very interesting ways, and accruing energy and using the special abilities of them, and some reaction abilities. But it may not be there that long because it has a very low energy level. It can be taken out right away. But on the other hand, if your opponents are attacking that, then they're not focusing on your god, and meanwhile you're accruing energy using some of the cards that you have turn by turn, which can be a way for you to get to victory. It's actually a much easier way to get to victory as opposed to eliminating every other god, depending on how many players you're playing with. And that's the thing too, is that there's different strategies in this game. So you can go all defense, or you can go all attack, or you mix and match as you see fit. If you're playing with a larger group, maybe you can blend into the background, do a little bit of both, and hope that no one really targets you that much. And there's also the concept in this game of protecting the other players. So if you think that someone's going to get eliminated and that's not really going to be to your benefit right now, you can actually protect them. And obviously if you're playing a team game, that's incredibly beneficial, because you're playing with either one or two other people, and now you can look out for each other. And in fact, that's a very interesting way to play the game, which is even more fleshed out in this version of the game, is that you play on teams, but only one god is the main god. The other players are support, and that adds a whole new dynamic. It almost feels like that is the preferred way to play this game, but obviously that depends on you and your group. There's tons of different variety in the game. I mean, again, this is typical deck building in some ways, the very, very core basis of it, but there's so many different things in it, like how when you buy a card, typically in a deck building game, it goes into your discard pile. Well, now it goes on top of your deck. And when that happens, it really keeps the game flowing very, very quickly, because you can set up combos easier, like, oh, I'm going to buy this card and use it right away. And knowing what else is coming up in your deck, if you have a good idea, that can really set you up. So the game really speeds forward at that point. On top of the fact that this is actually similar to another deck building game that Japan Games put out, Heart of Crown, where you have the randomized setup of cards, the warriors that you can purchase, but then they stack on top of each other. So if you're lucky, you might be able to buy more than one of the same card, which can be very beneficial, knowing, again, being able to stack them and knowing what you have coming up, and buying a card, seeing what comes out, potentially buying that as well. It's different. It's different than... it's something in between. Like I said, it's very similar to Heart of Crown. It's a little bit like the DC deck building game, but it's very different than Dominion, except for the fact that you might have cards stack up and be able to buy multiple copies of the same card. So the game sort of twists expectations of what a deck building game can be. Frankly, the idea of just directly attacking your opponent is very different than other deck building games. And then you add on the theme of, cute anime stuff, which, not everyone's cup of tea, but for a lot of people it definitely is, and that is definitely Japan Games' bread and butter. And then you add that with the mythological god aspect and the different pantheons of gods, which has always been interesting to me, and I think to a lot of people who are into that kind of stuff. So, if any of that sounds like it interests you, deck building game, anime theme, attack, which is different than most deck building games, team-based gameplay, and perhaps you are a Kanzume Goddess fan, but you've been waiting for more of it, and even though it's not directly compatible, again, this is a new version, the fact that now you've got so much more in this new version, if you did like that original version, I think this is definitely something that you're going to want to check out if you've been waiting. So, you don't have to take my word for any of this, and you shouldn't. You should go to the official Kickstarter project page, based on what you know now, and see for yourself how the pledge levels work, what all you can get. There's tons of stuff there. Like I said, 2 different base sets, lots of other stretch goals that can be unlocked. The temple cards are actually just in the River of Soul set, but if they meet their stretch goal, which they might have already done by now, you're going to get those for the base set, the Battle of Nine Realms as well. Check all of that out. The link will be in the top corner of your screen as well as down in the description section underneath this video. That is Kamigami Battles from Japan Made Games. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, for supporting our sponsors. Take care.